Hello everyone, I've just had another supporter of those yellow jackets kind of comment on me and say I have no baseless facts. Today you might have heard in the news that Theresa May has been defeated, she can't kick the can down the road anymore and she can't have a hard Brexit. This means that this leaves, or if she has, it's basically contempt of Parliament. She now has basically two options. She has to either renegotiate, which we know it's going to be impossible, or she has to accept one of the deals, such as the Canada deal, the Norwegian deal. She has to accept one of them as an alternative, or withdraw the Article 50 or ask for a people's vote. This is a major push forward to kind of finally take back sense of what's been absolute chaos, that the government has no idea what it's doing. And the likes of Morgan, Boris, there's no mandate in the House of Parliament to enact what they want. Right, so this yellow jacket, I'm going to play his game just for now, because he's adamant that we left for a hard Brexit and that the people who are in the audience are outside Westminster screaming at MPs and journalists are right. I will read him this, and I will post the link in the description when it's all uploaded, so you can check this out for yourself. But here it is. The article's called "Did We Vote for Hard Brexit?" And I hope at least these people will at least have the decency to read it, think about it, and then do a counter argument, rather than just use the term Project Fear or, we won the vote, get on with it, because it's not as clear cut as they claim. Okay, it's called "Did We Vote for a Hard Brexit?" by Simon Crump, a European from Britain. No, we most certainly did not, and the government has no mandate to pursue a hard Brexit. Firstly, 48% of the people who voted to remain. Remember that, the one that they forget about. So clearly they did not want any kind of Brexit at all. The other 52% of vote leave for various different reasons. Some of them object to the perceived lack of democratic accountability in the EU institutions. Some of them object to the gradual transition of the EEC from a simple common market to today's EU, which is pushing towards even closer union under a federal government. Some of them object to the fact that Britain is a net contributor to the EU budget, and many of them are unhappy that net migration to Britain from the EU hit an all-time high in 2016. Regardless of the economic benefits that it brings. Only the last one of these reasons requires more than a soft Brexit. The EU is adamant that access to the single market is incumbent on freedom of movement. That would suggest that controlling immigration requires a hard Brexit, unless an unlikely compromise can be reached. Bear in mind, this is the hard Brexit that they want. This is the ones that they claim people wanted. Leave campaign did not describe exactly what kind of Brexit we could expect, but they did conflate a number of incomparable outcomes in a way that suggested all could be achieved. They made frequent references to Norway and Switzerland, who are not members of the EU, but have access to the single market by virtue of their membership of the European trade area and by upholding freedom of movement, while at the same time suggesting that immigration could be controlled. They suggested that free trade links with Europe could be maintained without making any financial contributions to the EU. In return, they even neglected to subtract the money the EU spends in Britain from that figure they said we'd save by leaving. Vote Leave never said that we would have to leave the single market to realise their goals, and wasn't mentioned on the ballot paper. This was a referendum on the European Union, not the single market. Now, I don't know how many Leavers voters wanted to curtail freedom of movement. Nearly all the ones I've spoken to or have interacted with Corner have been at pains to point out that they wanted to leave the EU for other reasons. One guy I know said he thought the EU was going to tear itself apart anyway, and we're best to get out of there before it gets messy. A less pessimistic, but I respect his argument. Few of them have admitted to me that they wanted to prevent EU citizens from working in the UK. Maybe some of them think that they won't admit it because they realise that economics are against them and they don't want to come up as xenophobic. However, the big silent immigration vote that I'm pretty sure falls short of the 96% Leave voters required to make a hard Brexit a majority position. If that had been a proposition put to the people on the ballot paper, it would have been defeated easily. So you Yellow Jacket supporters and you kind of MOG supporters, basically I just blew your argument apart with very simple logical arguments based on facts and based on reasoning, yet you are willing to follow blindly a guy known to be an outright liar and has not an outright liar. For example, I'm going to call him Stephen Lemon, because I know that you hero worship this creep and cretin. Mr. Stephen Lemon. Now, oh, by the way, if you don't like it, are you going to just come out of my house and like he did? Yeah. Anyway, he's basically had several reasons why he's failed in his arguments. Firstly, he claimed an attack by a soldier that was involved in a hit and run involved 10 Muslims who attacked him before he was hit. CCTV and witness statements have proven that this was not the case. The soldier was in a nightclub and got into a disagreement with a black man. There was a bit of an argument and a knife was drawn. There was no 10 Muslims just randomly appeared out of nowhere there. Yeah, so that's one of them. And then he's been sued by a refugee. His argument is that he got trolled by a lefty. Sorry, but if you're going to criticise a reporter for lying, who's got a hell of a lot of facts to back his up, don't go around claiming something that you can't prove, or you do get sued. It's kind of obvious. If you are wanting to look anything that anyone brings to you, fact check it. It's kind of not hard to do. It's what reporters do. They won't just randomly report something that they have no shred of evidence, otherwise they get sued. And that's what happened with Tommy Robinson. He just thought he'd just pick a very daft argument that made no sense whatsoever, ranted on his Twitter feed for God knows how long, and now he's getting sued. I suspect he'll get sued a lot, as there'll be more court cases coming that he won't pay. He's also been blocked off PayPal. MasterCard's blocked him now. So please. And there are videos that explain why he is a racist and a xenophobe. I'm not going to go into them, but they are there to look at. And shouting in people's faces does not prove you're right. It just proves that when a guy doesn't answer your questions, it's they're fed up and they can't be asked answering it. Okay? That's just a tip. Doesn't prove you're right, it just proves you can't be asked. Which is what Owen Jones did. He just proved he couldn't be asked with you. Because he knows that you'll rise to his occasion and he's not bothered. Anyway. But what does it mean for Brexit now? Well, the good news is that Brexit has basically, I wouldn't say been derailed, but it's kind of been shaped a little bit better now. People who are worried about their medicines, their way of life, their economic trade, all these things that these yellow jackets have not even mentioned or MOG, about how the pound's predicted to tank once we leave, and depending on the type of deal we get, depends on how bad it's going to get. The hard Brexit now has been forecast to 8%. I know I said 10, but it's actually 8. If we live with some sort of deal, they reckon about 4% will be damaged by. So if we get a kicking, it's just how bad the kicking is. And Morgan, all the others, they can kind of fire off fantasy figures and fantasy theoretical laws, but when experts from around the world have told you, and these are experts in their field, they're not just some random chancers, they're not some big Etonian guy who sits in a pub with a pint of fag telling you how I'm gonna make Britain great again. Oh, where the fuck was that macaron? Oh yes, I know Latin and that's why I'm very posh and that's why I know better than you because I'm posh. These actual experts, one expert has actually turned around and said that any trade barrier to our country will have severe damage, and leaving the EU was one of the biggest trade barriers that we could do. This is an expert that's not ingrained in Britain. This is an American expert. We're actually being called Leroy Jenkins right now by a lot of Europe, by everyone basically outside of Europe. We are the laughing stock because of this, by the way. So it's okay to call them Project Fear. Maybe the Americans, but they're only like the Trump supporters. That kind of... But everywhere else is just laughing at us thinking, what the hell have you done? Putin, there's evidence of Putin being involved in the vote rigging. Yeah, it's still a will of the people. It's still a will of people that we got. There's high evidence of vote rigging, vote tampering by Cambridge Analytica to mess with people's opinions. There's high evidence of money from outside interests in the UK, America, Russia. I still think you're on shaky ground by saying it's the will of the people. And now, Tommy Robinson. By the way, Tommy Robinson is getting funded by, as funds by Rebel Media. Rebel Media is owned by a white supremacist who believes in wiping out all of Israel. By the way, not Israel, wiping out all of Islam. He's a pro-Israel state supporter. And bear in mind that a lot of the Islamic sentiment didn't happen until after World War II when Israel was formed. So all this sentiment, all this like nastiness about Islam is wrong. Yes, in the early days there was conquest, but so was the Christians had a lot of conquest. They killed a lot of their own as well, and in communist states as well there was. Right, so I'm putting that to bed. Just because you bring up someone's past, of a religion's past of 100 years or even 1,000 years history, where things have changed, reforms happened, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true now. But I could state that because you're an atheist. Bearing in mind, I thought I'd just mention this. If you claim to be an atheist, Tommy Robinson's fans, you're the big atheist bigwig, Richard Dawkins, actually disagrees with you and says we should have stayed in the EU. Okay, but that's it. That's all I'm going to say for now. But, by the way, I'm not going to be bullied by idiots who think they can just troll me. I'm just going to ignore you. If you say anything nasty, you will be deleted. And you're only going to make it good for me, because then the more people that view my videos, if I get loads of videos, I can just add revenue to it. So, bye-bye.